Power Rangers is always a franchise that I've held near and dear to my heart, with so many great seasons. We've certainly had our high highs and low lows, but I think that it's safe to say that the late 90s and most of the 2000s up until 2011, we consistently had some pretty good seasons with a misstep or two here or there. But what about video games? We had a bunch during the Mighty Morphin boom and a few weird ones afterwards. What about in later times? Well, thankfully the Game Boy Advance has you covered with 5 Power Ranger games released on it. And today we're going to take a look at them. First one we're going to take a look at is at the beginning. Well, as close to the beginning as the shows in today's episode go. We're going to take a look at Power Rangers Time Force. Power Rangers Time Force was easily one of the best seasons, so I guess it makes sense that 3 games based on it exist, but more on those other ones later. Oh, heck yeah, it even has the classic theme song. It even has lyrics on screen to go along with the instrumental. I mean, hey, wait a minute. Timeless Wonders Aura Thunder? That's not the lyrics. That doesn't even make sense. The intro shows graphics of the bad guys, and oh my god, that's the ugliest depiction of Rancic I've ever seen. I should also put it out there that all 5 of these games that I'm talking about don't actually save, but work with a password system, which is kind of weird considering it was sort of a commonplace thing in the Game Boy Advance era, but whatever, I'm getting off track. You start off as the Red Ranger, which seems to be pretty standard, and as you go through the level, you get interrupted by circuit every 3 seconds. God, I hate when games do this. Just let me play the game. But to my surprise, the first level is actually portraying the first part of Time Force, where the original Red Ranger, Alex, is killed by Rancic in the future. So Rancic goes back in time, and you follow him. I'm part of the series so far. You can play as any of the 5 core Rangers, and you can also find random Quantum Morphers around and become the Quantum Ranger later on as well. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill platformer with beat-em-up elements, which is pretty typical for a Power Ranger-based game. I am, however, concerned with the accuracy of the game from here on out. Yeah, remember the episode of Power Rangers Time Force where Jen goes into a mine and fights cowboys? Yeah, for any of you who've never seen the series, that doesn't happen. The series is called Time Force, but the only time travel that really happens in the show is when the 4 non-Red Rangers travel to the past to fight Rancic. Then 2001, from the year 3000. But other than that, there's really no other time travel in the series. After each level you fight a boss, and like the rest of the game, it's just basic button mashing. After each level you get a Zord fight as well, and okay, it's just like a clunkier version of the regular fighting, which I guess I expected. Level 2 has you in a Spanish fort. It's like the creators of this game just watched the later series theme song where they have clips from this episode where they're on various TV shows, aka not traveling through time, and just kind of assumed that was the premise of the show. But yeah, this game's okay, but it's not that good. But there's definitely worse Ranger games out there. Well, that was certainly a trip. No pun intended. Because the Green Ranger in Time Force's name is Trip. Yeah, so that doesn't go over your head. Yeah, moving on. The next entry we're going to take a look at is Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Dino Thunder was an awesome series. And it even brought back the iconic Tommy Oliver as a mentor figure. It managed to be a great show without shoehorning him into every little crevice. But how will the game be? Well, to start off, the awesome theme song is not in it. but let's not jump the shark yet. But you know what? I'm gonna cut to the chase. This game is awesome. I mean, it's basically the same style as the Time Force game, but it's just much more polished and well utilized. Each level has a designated ranger, and it follows the plot of the series accurately, at least for the most part. So basically, you just kill certain enemies, rescue civilians, whatever it may be. Basically what you would expect, but it's very well done. There's also weird mini games in between some levels that are like a bizarre version of Pipe Dream or something, but you know, they're so short-lived that it's no big deal. There's also Zord battles, and I guess they're okay. It just seems like no PR games can get Zord battles right for some reason, but for what it's worth, it's at least playable. Next up, we have Power Rangers S.P.D. Now, out of all the seasons being covered in this video, I'd say S.P.D. is probably my favorite, if you couldn't tell. S.P.D. is very similar to the Dino Thunder game, which is certainly a good thing. I don't think it plays quite as well, but it's still very fun. It pays homage to the story and characters very well, and each main ranger gets some good representation, even with accurate depictions of their civilian powers. It's a pretty good package, although the combat system does get a little repetitive after a while, and there's some weird stages shoehorned in, like this weird Missile Command inspired stage and some pseudo 3D levels. The Zord fights aren't too much to write home about. They're about on par with the Dino Thunder ones, but I kind of expect it at this point.
Well, I like it. It's a good game. Next up, I want to take a look at Power Rangers Wild Force.
Now, Wild Force is the series right after Time Force, so I can certainly expect them to improve some things from Time Force, right? Well, they changed it very dramatically. This game is not like any of the other 4 PR games on this console. And of course this one doesn't have the theme song, much like Dino Thunder or S.P.D. You start off the game in Turtle Cove, where you gotta face orgs. It's pretty much what I expect, basically. And of course I gotta pick the White Ranger. I mean, she's hands down the best one on the season. What is this? The game has like a weird isometric top-down view, and it's just really awkward. I guess it works, but it's just like, why? The Rangers also do probably the creepiest runs I've ever seen in a video game. The combat is just really awkward from this perspective. After you fight the main bad guy in each stage, you get this cutscene of them making the monster bigger the same way they do it in the show, which is always appreciated. And of course this initiates a Zord fight. It's pretty cool that you get to choose different Zords to use in battle, which is good considering the series had like 20 unique Zords in it, but the Zord fighting, The Zord combat in this game is pretty much unplayable. It has something to do with pressing buttons, but why do that? Just let me kick its ass by just fighting it, you know, fighting game style. That's all we want. Yeah, I avoid Wild Force if at all possible.
Yeah, I'm done with Wild Force. This is not a good game at all. It's a shame because I really like the season involved. What can you do?
The final game we're going to take a look at is Ninja Storm. Now, Ninja Storm was an iconic series, and it very much deserves the tribute I am paying to it today. The game is also pretty good. It doesn't have the theme song. Yeah, none of these do except for Time Force, which is a shame because all 5 of them have amazing theme songs. The gameplay is more like a traditional beat 'em up, like think Final Fight or something along those lines, as opposed to the more platformer style that we've been seeing in the previous games. It's mindless, but it's a lot of fun to just beat the hell out of everyone in it. It gets a little weird at some points, like where you have to fight this giant flower thing, but I mean, it hardly hinders the experience. The game also has Zord fights, but oh my god, why did they think this was a good idea? It has the button matching sort of deal that Wild Force had, but at least it's doable this time. I have no idea why they just didn't make it like a fighting game style stage instead. Because I absolutely love the Ninja Storm Zord, and I would love to engage in some combat with it, honestly. But the game, thankfully, plays very well, aside from the Zord fights being kinda iffy. And it's absolutely a worthwhile game if you get your hands on it, especially with how cheap it is.
So, that's it for the Power Rangers games on the Game Boy Advance. Most of them are pretty decent. It's not bad. And some of them are even really good. You know, definitely give these a go if you ever find them, because they're pretty cheap. And they're fun for what they are. Especially considering you can get each of these games for like $5 or less. Anyways, I'm off to write an angry letter to THQ for botching up the Time Force theme song. Thanks for watching.